go to my page, Real One Radio page, G Spot Podcast page. It'll all be up on YouTube,
Okay.
Twitter. We on that. We on
My mom famous.
all right. I've been trying to be like the professors. You know what I'm saying?
So that chat is like for everything: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can answer questions that way?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then I'm able to also post the questions up. So.
Okay. Cool.
All right, y'all. We appreciate y'all for checking into the G Spot Podcast. Tonight, I got some special guests in the building. We got some freedom fighters, some educators in the building tonight. I'm very, very excited. I was like, let me go ahead and get up out here. I was kind of nervous at first. I was like, man, I hope they don't tell me no. But praise God from all blessings flow, goddamn. But tonight, I want to first introduce my guest. We have a Dream Defender Squadd Lead.
Right.
Okay, in the building with Dream Defenders. I want you to introduce yourself.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Karoline with a K. I have been with Dream Defenders since 2021, and I was the youngest one working there. And now I am transitioning into just being the squad lead, volunteer work, and I've been trying to fight this fight. Really, it's a lot going on, and I feel like Gen Z definitely should have an input as to what's going on in this world.
All right, then we have City Councilwoman Teniade, City Councilwoman of District 5, Teniade Broughton in the building. You got anything you want to put out there real quick?
Just thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. All right, and then we have my sister Mianikia in the building. She want to be all shy. You got anything you want to put out there?
No, I'm happy to be here and happy to be on the panel.
Yeah, I'm happy to have y'all here. I wanted some very strong, not only leaders in the communities, but educators. First off, let me throw this out there before I forget it, because I'm one of those type of people. I have to say stuff right then. You should definitely think about doing a show called Karoline with a K. That's real catchy right there, okay? That's real catchy right there. But I know that a lot of you are leaders. One thing I definitely admire about, okay, so Miss Broughton was a teacher when I was in middle school, right? And it's I didn't know she was that, you always think your teachers be old, and you realize she was young, know? So it's very, very exciting to see what she does now, especially when it comes to educating us on Black history, especially locally. I'm a very, 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 I'm a Black history fanatic. I love going to everywhere. Every city I visit, I have to go to where the Black people at, So I think that's very, very important that we have somebody like you that's here. You try to like be quiet, you know what I'm saying? We be needing you up out there. Tonight, man, I know first and foremost, praise God from all blessings flow. And we appreciate all y'all, everybody. Make sure y'all always, like I tell y'all, make sure y'all post positivity, you know what I'm saying? Give us a little advice, and make sure y'all chime in, because this is a very, very, very important subject that we have to talk about tonight. Now, first and foremost, how was y'all week?
Oh, it was good. It's real good.
Mm-hmm. I know one thing that we've been seeing in the news lately is the whole situation with DeSantis banning African American literature from public schools in the state of Florida. I'm pretty sure most of y'all have seen how the NAACP has declared Florida one of those states to where you shouldn't travel to if you're Black.
They should fly me out.
Yeah.
Get me out of Florida.
Yeah. My thing is, with that, because we saw that a lot when the situation was going on with the laws being passed in Jackson, Mississippi. I think we shouldn't run, though. Why should we run from something that we're entitled to? Our people worked the land. Our people did pay their taxes. They did what they had to do to earn to live there. So why should we run away? Why should we leave out of Florida?
I feel like run wouldn't be the correct term, but more as, so have you heard of how the Hispanic people have stopped working, and they're not providing, there's truck drivers not going to Florida, so there's a lot of produces and everything that's not hitting the stores and everything. So I feel like as Black people, as people of color, we provide a lot for Florida. So positioning ourselves to be removed from Florida would definitely be eye-opening instead of using the term as running.
Mm. How do you feel about that?
Well, I just want to get the teacher's opinion before I
Okay.
For me, I don't don't think that we should run either. I'm not a runner. Like, I think that we should educate the people about, because being in the school system, you really don't have, like in the elementary school, you barely get any history. In middle school, you're getting that, watered down history,
Right.
just like in high school. So a lot of times they don't understand that your local elections are what you should be paying attention to. They drum up the whole, president, but if we had came out and voted in the election that put DeSantis, back in office, we wouldn't have these problems right now. Because, a lot of that was us not showing up. Right. So.
Right.
Well, so, briefly, in my opinion, let me turn my phone off. Okay. Y'all's phones are off. So, very briefly, well, first let me say that City Council does not have any type of influence, or I shouldn't say that, maybe not influence, but any legislative role in education. That's the school board, right? So my answer is not as a representative of District 5 or even someone who's involved with the city. But still none of that matters because our children are a part of the school systems here. And for me, it's not where you fell, but where you tripped, that old saying, And to what the sister here said, we know during midterm elections, we don't have a high voter turnout. And we were all around for that original fiasco. The brother,
Andrew.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all had COVID. Make sure you get vaccinated because when you survive COVID, part of it is that you have these memory lapses, and I can't remember like basic names. So make sure you stay healthy. But I saw how that went, and then his election was, what year was that?
2 years ago.
Yeah, about 2020.
2021. Was it 2021?
And whether we put ourselves here or not, because we know there was a lot of voter intimidation and things that are typical in American history, we know that.
Right.
But what we have to be aware of is that we still have to do it.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do even if the ballot doesn't turn out in our favor? One thing we learned from previous elections is that when people don't have their way, they congregate and they start to plan. And what I'm seeing right now is more complaint than planning. And so much so that I'm wondering, here we are, just African Americans in Florida, and we have a task before us to make sure that our children are educated. In essence, and I see the things on social media, and I see the things on in the news, and this is where I probably have a slightly different perspective than the educator and the freedom fighter here.
Look, you may not.
And I'll quote my great aunt, who was born in early 1900s. She lived to be about 90 years old. And I asked her, because I do these oral history interviews with older African Americans talking about how far we've come and what they did. And, I totally support the civil rights movement in all types of ways. And so I asked my great aunt, well, what did you do in the 60s, the 50s and 60s during the civil rights movement when people were boycotting the restaurants on Palafox,
Right.
She said, I don't know why they went down there. You're supposed to eat before you leave home. And of course, I'm like, eat before you leave home? No, you're supposed to march. Like that's, because that's how we got the story. But now what I'm seeing is it's really not a message of her not wanting to participate. Because what I learned was that there were plenty of folks who just didn't eat down there because they did not want to suffer through the insult of it, right? So eat before you leave home now has become a metaphor for me. And think of all the things it requires for you to be able to eat before you leave home. How are you getting food? First, you have to have your own grocery store. You have to have your own course of just all the plans that's involved in organizing people to be able to be sovereign enough to eat before you leave home. So that if they tell you, no, you can't sit here, or no, you can't come here, that does not mean you shouldn't fight and continue to try to make that happen. But we're in a position now to where if we don't put ourselves in a position to where we can get whatever we need from public schools, we won't have it. So these folks have said, and think about all the things he's running for president. At some point he said, which of these groups are negotiable? Which of these do I not need? And who can I present as some sort of foil to where people can attack this, whether it be smoke signals for distraction or whatever. We put ourselves in a position to where he said, I know, I have an idea. The black people.
The black people.
Whose fault is that?
Ours.
These folks been the same, so why are you acting like it's new?
Oh, you better say that.
So we have to put ourselves in a position to where we are non-negotiable when they decide to make this contract between themselves and whatever their mission in life may be. And part of that is, what's the saying? Oh yeah, God bless the child has got his own.
Yep.
Think about it like this: it was the Reconstruction government, when all the black folks were in office and stuff, that invented public schools, or created. I'm sorry, not invented, but created the legislation for public schools because you had these freedmen, these freed slaves, and then at the time, of course, you had immigrants coming from other countries, like people who couldn't speak English and all that. So they created this public schools under Reconstruction, and they've been challenged ever since. So essentially what we have is people who, think about it, most of them are, from what I saw, the parents speaking out against it had children in private school. Their kids don't even have to go to our schools,
Right.
but their tax dollars do. So they rallied around the fact that my tax dollars are going into something that I do not support. And it's fine. I mean, if they don't want to support it, that's fine. Fine. But their children aren't those. When I say they, I don't mean it as a racist. I just mean because I see some of us too now.
Yeah.
So they don't want their children participating in public schools. They don't want their children learning certain things. They don't want them to read about, what is it, the penguin, the gay penguin or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is, they don't want their children learning about science from a particular perspective. They don't want them reading certain books. And they don't even have kids in the school system. And those voices, they were able to rally those voices.
And
strong
they
enough.
Above
And
everybody
it echoes.
else.
So here it is, you or you and those who have children, and we all have invested in the public school system. And there's a time it's being challenged. But when you don't do things like vote, show up to meetings, participate, when it's decided that they no longer want public education in the same way that it was before, and we're not ready to divest because we've totally invested ourselves into this system that we've always had to fight this place. Think about Brown versus Board of Education.
Right.
It wasn't Brown versus Board of the insurance company.
Right.
It was education.
Right.
And we've always been fighting this. So what is it, and I'm asking our generation, what is it about us that decided we've arrived and we're so comfortable that we no longer have to fight, that this freedom struggle has been won? And it's, number one, disrespectful to the legacy of our ancestors.
Very.
Secondly, lazy. It's just lazy, right? And for us to, so even in those days, they always had some type of nonprofit organization or public organization to make it so that kids could get educated. Remember the schools in the churches, or the Sunday school. Today I'm representing the Freedom School of Central Gulf Coast Freedom School, which is a after-school program or program that was at one of the churches in the district I represent. And they recently moved to another district, but it's ran by a sister named, I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fog, but where they're really investing into young children, getting them acclimated to in elementary school, and they have tons of books that they give, and they're presented from an open mind, and it was sponsored by one of the churches, the one by the cemetery. You can't remember?
Greater Little Rock?
No, the one by the Holy Cross. I can't remember.
Oh, the Presbyterian Church.
No, but they're going to get me for not being able to remember the name of it. But I thank them. I thank that church for all that they did. But really, you know, I came through the school system when Booker T. Washington was a top school. Booker T. Washington High School was a top school. And I've seen its decline over the past, is it 2 decades I've been up out of there? Oh, my.
Uh-oh.
Oh, wow. We've been out longer than we were in school period. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
But even before that, let me tell you. So, because, you know, I do a lot of these oral history interviews. And even some of my own family members, they talk about attending a school on the Escambia County side on the Escambia County, Alabama side of Escambia County, it was a black private school, boarding school. Some of my family members attended a school called, I can't remember the name, but I will in a second, but it was one of these schools that Booker T. Washington established throughout the South. But they were black private boarding schools. Southern Normal. It just came to me. Southern Normal was the name of the school in Alabama. And I see that it was somehow like adopted by Alabama State at one point. And someone recently told me, oh, it's been demolished. Oh, it got so old, nobody could use it, it's torn down. Now, so many of our grandparents attended Southern Normal just because, for the most part, their parents did not want the children having to deal under like subpar conditions and things like that. So they sent them to Southern Normal, and Southern Normal produced brilliant minds. Now these folks are telling you they don't want to teach their children. So what you gonna do?
And the schools that you could tell them at, go on.
So you've lost your school, and these folks have said, we don't want to teach your kids. So we've put ourselves in a position to where before it was just, remember I said, you had your own, so fighting in the civil rights movement was just to improve the condition for all. But now, that's where you got to go if you want to improve the condition of yourselves too, regardless of your background, your class. And because of our relationship with the church, and I definitely don't want to get into that tonight, but the ones that once were able to sponsor schools because of our divesting from them, can they run a whole school? Like, even if you question some of the theology, there's other things that we need that we should be supporting, right? So I think we're at a space for our generation where we need to pause and rethink, one, what we've benefited in the last 40 years and the gains from the civil rights movement, but also what we have to offer. One of the things I recognize is that when something happens, we immediately go to those 1960s responses, protest, march, those type of things. But something about Pensacola that was a little different was there was this, like under Reverend Matthews, he was the one out in the streets protesting. And then the people who established the Human Relations Commission were the ones who made a seat at the table and would sit with the opposition or even people who agreed with them that may have been of a different ethnic background and talk about what we need to do. And that's the outside system, inside system thing. And I think we have so much outside system approaches that by the time we get a seat at the table, we just tired. Right. We're tired of marching.
Right.
And let's have those two approaches, especially for a group like Dream Defenders. Let's have those two approaches to this freedom struggle.
Right.
And maybe it could be the older people, the younger people seem to have more energy than the older people.
Right.
But then who's going to sit there and actually think out the plan and course and the bullet points, all the boring stuff.
Right.
If we want this, and that. So I think, but here's the thing. Here's the hope. It can be resolved. It's not so far gone that it's just lost. It can definitely be resolved. We just have to, you know how they say, like, you can't, if you don't have anything to offer, you can't bargain when you don't have anything to offer. And unfortunately, we put ourselves in a position to where we don't have enough to offer, we don't have a lot to offer ourselves. So many other people benefit from us, that's clear. But how have we been able to promote the idea of this is what we have to offer and to feed ourselves off of it? How are we going to feed ourselves before we leave home?
Right.
I'll leave it at that.
A point you made, it was the other day, I'd like to sit around a lot of people, older people too, and I ask a lot of questions. So right now, I'm in the process of putting my family reunion together, and I asked my grandmother the other day. She graduated from Booker T. Washington class of '61, and I asked her the other day. I was like, we was talking about something, and she was like, "Well, white people this, white people that." She told me certain things that they went through growing up, and I said, "Well, it affected you." She told me about they used to go to the sit-ins down on Palafox, and she was like, she was scared as hell, but everybody else was like, "No, this is what we're gonna do." And she was like, "Why are we down here doing?" Like, I'm freaking out. They spitting on us and shit. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, "Well, you went to a." She was like, "I didn't really feel like it affected me that much growing up." And I said, "Well, you went to a segregated school?" And she said, "No, I didn't. I went to an all-black school." And I'm like, man, my mom kind of like, "No, you went to a segregated school. You had to go to a school like that." But listening to you made me realize for them, we went to an all-black school. There was no issue because this was the norm for us, So I think that we do have to get back into that instead of feeling like we have to always react to be included in situations. Let's just create our own resources for ourselves. And I think we got to stop. And that's one thing I've always, even myself, I was in the Marines for 6 years. And I personally, I went to Paris Island for my basic training in the Carolinas. And I remember being at graduating. We had family day right the day before graduation. And we were on the rifle range, and I was showing my great uncle, he graduated from Booker T. Washington. I was showing him around. He said, "This used to be a slave plantation." And I'm like, "What?" And he was like, "You see that monument right there? That's to pay homage to the slaves that were here." And I was like, "Bro," you know what I'm saying? Like, what? And so I started doing research for myself and even found out that the barracks that I stayed in was on top of a slave cemetery. That just blew me. You know what I'm saying?
When you said you was at Paris Island, I knew where it was going.
That blew me. And so I remember it reminded me though of my last day on Paris Island. The drill instructor, he was black, Staff Sergeant Stevens. He was from the Carolinas. And he pulled all black Marines to the back of the squad bay. And he said, "I want to tell y'all this." He said, "Use this." He said, "You're going to deal with a lot of stuff coming into here." But we weren't really looking at it as you talking to us as black children to warn us about what's going to go on. He was like, "So we want you to," he said, "use it for what you can. Use the resources. If you don't want to stay 20 years, don't. But use the resources to get what you can and leave." And we was like, "Okay, we young. I'm 18. I'm not really listening to what this man talking about." You know what I'm saying? But I still remember what he said because when my whole career, it started resonating like this is what he was talking about. So my first duty station was in on Camp Lejeune, which is in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And we couldn't go certain places. This is in 2009, 2010. We couldn't go certain places. We had a big bulletin in our barracks. And it would tell us that we would always have to travel in squad teams, fire teams.
I was a Marine wife at Cherry Point.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you had to always travel, especially if you were black, with 4 or more people. Yep. And they had a list of areas we couldn't go to because of white supremacists. Yep. And that's when it became real for me because I'm like, bro, like this is 2009, exactly So I think. That's what for me, I kind of developed this. And then my second duty station happened to be in Montgomery, Alabama. And it was like, y'all trying, like, what are y'all doing to me? You know what I'm saying? Like, why do y'all keep putting me in these places to make me realize, basically, this is what, it really, at the end of the day, at the beginning of when I first was going through it, I was like, why am I going through this? Why am I seeing this? Why is God put me in these places? But I realized that's where I was supposed to be. To create the fire within me, to do stuff, to make people remember who we were, where we come from, not to mourn about it. And I think that's what a lot of things too. I realized we watched a lot of movies. People like, "Oh, not another slave movie." And I used to be like, "Why not?" But now I get it. Why are we always? One thing my daddy told me. He said one thing about dead people: they love attaching themselves to things that are dead, right? Why are we always rejoicing about the pain that our people, or talking about the pain that our people went through? let's rejoice about it. Let's talk about the things that they did do that was positive. Let's talk about the grocery stores that they opened. Let's talk about the neighborhoods that they established, the cities.
You know why? Most of the time, we don't know about that.
We don't know about it.
Because they have romanticized us being slaves. They have romanticized that. That's all we see. So think about the fact that I graduated in 2001, and I had no idea about Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Right.
None.
Me either.
Had no idea. And now that I am now 40, I'm learning. When I say my mind is blown with what we have accomplished, forget that we were slaves.
Right.
What we accomplished. And I really want to go back to eating before you leave home. I had it up in my room. I'm just gonna say it, okay? I had this quote up in my room. I changed the words a little bit, but I had it up in my room. If you want to hide something from put it in a book.
Yeah.
I changed the wording, but it was a quote I had in my room. And I was that teacher, especially, and I taught history, middle school. I was that teacher that said, I'm going to wake y'all up. So when, Satan be talking about the woke and all this, I'm the woke. I'm the woke. Because I'm going to wake you up. I'm going to let you know that it's not roses and cherry blossoms out here. This is what's really going on.
Yeah.
I did current events. Let's talk about what's really going on out here. Not this stuff that they want you to talk about that has happened years ago. You need to see that Arkansas right now has a bill to resegregate their schools.
Come on now.
Where it all started. They want to go back to it. Now, am I cut in half? Yes, I am. Because I feel like, and this is we should have never
integrated.
We should have never.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agreed.
You know what?
Well, can I just chime in right there? I hear you. So, consider this. There's all types. And remember, at the time, there wasn't the King MLK voice was not the only voice.
Right.
You had the Malcolm voice. You had whatever other people were doing. You had different voices. It's for whatever reason that one just became the loudest. But even Dr. King or Harry Belafonte is cited as saying, Dr. King said, I think I've integrated my people into a burning house.
Yeah.
But then on the other end, we know Malcolm had his kind of moments where he saw folks who did not look like him, but were willing to work with him. Right? And I think the unique position of our generation, we are the mix of both. Because I have some really wonderful white friends.
Right.
And actually, maybe because of their ability to express themselves freer, like they don't give a damn. I'm so sorry. But that's how much it is.
Right.
And they're like, well, come on, let's do this. And I'm like, I'm scared. I don't want to do it. That's very radical. Like they are just, just wilding.
Right.
And we also it lets us know that this social construct or the social construction of race can be transformed and reinterpreted. And all race is a class expression, right?
Yes.
Because one drop rule, like what is that, right? If I go to Brazil, I'm something else, and I'm not.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
So we know it's going to take all of us. But before the civil rights movement and the way we were taught about it, we didn't see the all of us. We only saw like what's the. But remember, you still had the Jewish American young men who were killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was always a multicultural struggle. Since its beginnings, from like the Underground Railroad days, right? The abolitionist days, right? So,
and don't get me wrong, as in, the segregation the integration was in the sense that it was a negative. it was negative in the sense that I feel like a lot of us became very lazy. And I mean lazy as in parenting, as in paying attention to what your child is doing at school, as in, and this is just something, I guess, me seeing being in a classroom. You know, you don't want to show up 9th through 11th grade, but when 12th grade and they can't graduate, then you want to come up there and yell and scream. When I called you these 3 years, where were you?
Weren't those prom dresses nice?
They was nice.
The cars too.
The cars. Can I get a picture in front of us as well? Where were you?
You're right.
I also feel like when it does come down to school, it's such a tricky conversation at the same time, because depending on the age, how students present themselves at school could be completely different on how they present themselves at home. And
True.
the parents always are going to believe their children before another adult.
True.
So I've witnessed it. I'm not going to lie, I've done it. Yeah. So I always try to be truthful with that. So I do feel like it's both parties. So I would talk about how comfortable a child is to come up to their parent and actually have these conversations as to what's going on with them and what's going on at school, because I was comfortable with my mom growing up. And I did want to touch on a couple of things you said. So my family, they come from Dominican Republic. So I didn't grow up knowing what Black history was when I was in the States. I was born in the States. And so everything that I know, I've learned on my own. I've learned through school, and there's still a lot of stuff that I don't know. So everything y'all are saying is new to me. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm just sitting in the back like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
we're
it's just
familiar with the stereotype from DR.
Yeah. So
it's interesting.
It is, yes. I still got some family members who don't believe they're Black. But anyway, that's not the topic.
Yeah, I bet that's a big thing. Okay.
So it's so interesting because at the same time when I was in school, it's all this information that I'm getting now and that I'm getting through Dream Defenders, getting through being this freedom fighter out in the world, they don't teach in school.
They don't.
And the fact that they're trying to take what they do teach.
But why should they?
Why should they what?
What benefit is it to them for you to know who you are?
I feel like I didn't have the resources to, because coming from parents who are immigrants, they didn't have the resources, and I didn't have the resources, and they didn't know who to reach out to, and I didn't know who to reach out to. And it wasn't until I was in Tallahassee and I went to an all-Black high school for the first time that I actually witnessed what Black culture was and what the deepness of it is. And how comfortable I felt.
You graduated in 2000, right?
Ma'am?
What year did you graduate from high school?
2020.
2020, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 20. I didn't mean to say 20.
I was like,
she finished in 2000. She said she went to an all-Black high school. What did Brown do? That's the one I learned in school. That's the one I got isn't there a postage stamp for Daisy Bates? Or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but she just said that she went to an all-Black high school. And if we revisit that, how has that been presented as if it was a win? When it clearly was not a win. So let's move back a little bit. Let's re-examine this thing. Let's see what we have to do to get where we need to be.
Oh, I can let you know now.
Yeah,
I feel like it's an option in high school. It's definitely an option. I took the IB program in high school, and I only remembered taking 1 or 2 classes of history my whole 4 years, and it was just not really educational. And so it was an option for me to actually take history, and then they also didn't offer African American history. And they offer that in the university, but also the credits don't align with what my major is. So it's like you have to pay for these different things to learn. So it's like, yeah, I get to know the Black culture now, just like you said, I get to understand the Black culture now, but I'm still not understanding, okay, where did they come from? Where did we come from? Who am I? And that caused a lot of identity issues of me growing up because I didn't know anything.
I want to add real quick a point that you made about Dominicans not saying that they are Black. Now, I think being Black is an American experience. Okay. even when you talk about Black History Month is African American History Month. That's about what we went through culturally, right? I think what they have a problem with is accepting their African descent ancestry. You get what I'm saying? Because it kind of makes a difference, And I think because one thing about white supremacy is not just a problem in America. Okay, it's a problem globally. If you go over to Australia, you see what they're doing to the Aboriginals. If you go over to Asia, we have African tribes over in Asia. If you go over to even Africa right now, you have the Jews. You have all kind of people up on who are becoming a problem for darker skinned people.
South Africa and them fighting the farms.
Yeah.
With the farmland.
Yeah. I was watching a video earlier.
You want to get the questions because I see there.
Oh yeah. Let me see if we got any questions.
I mean, while you're looking at that, I would say another problem with it would be the fact that they can see how Black people are being treated in different countries, and they can see how they respond, like what we do in different countries and everything. So they don't want to identify with that. And they want to identify as being Hispanic and just being Spanish. And that has been a big problem.
There's an Afro-Latino population, and they accept it, like the Afro-Mexicans.
Right.
Places like La Costa Chica and things like that. They claim it. And, the slave ships were there first. Only the smallest percentage came to the United States. Everybody else was like in Brazil.
It's definitely Brazil.
So, I was surprised when I got my ancestry DNA test. It was, I'm not going to
we're going to do that on this show. I definitely want to do that.
It wasn't even 50%. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But so we know how our experience is. But see, remember, race is a social construct.
It is.
I agree.
So, but we are just very tied to living in that construct and it has very real consequences, whether it be in medicine, in our health, in so many ways. Even the fact that the people with more melanin, they come to places with not a lot of sun, you get cancer harder, all kinds of things going on. So I think if we keep that in mind, that number one, biologically it's not real, but socially we live as if it is. So there's the effects are just as real when we consider it socially.
Yes.
And what can we do to deconstruct the social inequities that come with it?
Yeah.
Because I'll be the first one to say that Black is beautiful. The way we dance, our hair, and jazz and hip hop, and all of the gospel, all of the things we brought to America. That's definitely credible. It's worthy. At the same time, it's like we feed and live in the oppression. And if that's the only contribution, or that's the thing that makes us who we are. Yeah. And we know that's not true.
I feel like I agree with what you say 100%. I feel like that has a lot to do with self and breaking generational curses, because at the same time, people's needs are very different when it comes down to stuff like that. So it seems like when you ask that question, it seems like, okay, we got all the answers, but it's just like, okay, every single person needs their individual needs. And I feel like it has a lot to do with like sitting down with yourself and realizing what generational curse that you have to break in your family in order to be free from that.
Well, I have a little different perspective because of my individual experience. I'm not discounting it being true, but my family came from Tulsa. My grandfather came from Tulsa. He was born 10 years after the massacre, and he moved to Mobile, Alabama. One side of my family has been in Pensacola since before the Civil War, so it's just pure Pensacola. And then there's another side in Alabama, a branch of Alabama, and sprinkled throughout are, other folks. But what I see is the lineage that was able to stay together, that was jointed the longest, I'm able to stand on that the strongest. So what happened, and then there's that one little Alabama side where I think 4 out of the 6 brothers escaped the lynching, something crazy like that, right? So when you're able to be stable and build and grow, it's the Pensacola side. It's the Pensacola side that got me elected, right? My last name is Broughton. Everybody know a Broughton somewhere, right? So, but then I look at that Tulsa side, and I can only think about the horrors. I can't even trace my ancestry very far on that side. I have a picture, but I didn't even know their names, right? I had to research their names. In some kind of way, they protected that photo and it passed down. So when we think about the things that we've lost, the memory that we've lost, and we should also remember it is a testament of our survival. Mm-hmm. So just as we live under this banner of our race and culture, there are stories that are very liberating stories, and survivor stories associated with it that can help us push on. And I think that's part of the thing that we don't get. Sometimes we just get so stuck in the oppression stories that we don't get to tell the tale from a position of freedom, even with Juneteenth. And I hope we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
The fact that, it represents a step of our freedom.
Right.
That was won.
Right.
So, we see, how the song says, let us march on until victory is won.
Right.
But as we march, we have to have moments where we can pause and reflect and see how far we've come and see how far we have to go. Mm-hmm. But what our generation is not doing, or at least in my immediate circle, I mean, I see tons of people doing it everywhere, everywhere. But what I don't see is us sitting together, especially at the feet of our ancestors, of our elders, asking, what did you do and how can we carry the torch? And it's accepting what our responsibility may be, and what our responsibility may be might not look like what theirs was. It might not look like what our children. You're old enough to be my child. Yep. What I'm responsible for might not be what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, then you are going to have to take up what I didn't do.
Right.
I'm going to have to take up what my parents' generation failed to do.
Right.
So we don't even have a position where in the same spaces. We used to do it in church where we talk and where we learn and we grow. Even as we were the children who were to be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing them say now is talk to us.
Yeah.
So we have to start talking to each other more, breaking some of these generational curses. We talk about generational curses as like the people who are dead, but like, what about your mama?
Come on now.
Like,
yeah.
break those.
That's
Break
what I'm
those.
talking about. That's
And
what
in fact, you ain't talked to your dad in 10 years because you're still mad.
Because
About
you're still
whatever.
mad. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So break those too.
Yeah.
And break the ones that you are putting on your children because you may have had them too young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, that's very important that you pointed that out. I know one thing when it comes to the development, and this is just psychologically speaking, right? Mm-hmm. We know that trauma delays the advancement in the way we move, the way we think, the way we grow.
But you know what? Them folks don't care about your trauma.
And they don't. And that's why I always encourage therapy. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you can't take it like that, go talk to somebody.
I'm in therapy.
We
right
have
now.
to create spaces though, because we are so much ran down. Now people don't even have to have talent to have fame. You have social media influencers. So we are so eager to be like the people that we see instead of creating safe spaces within our own communities where, like, bro, you can come talk to me. Since you come, especially as black men. As black men, we sometimes you can't even walk and speak. I'm walking past you and I can't even speak. Oh, I ain't friendly. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
So then why can't you condemn the person who does not know you at all and see you frowning? Are they really? I mean, they're wrong, in the greater perspective, but we all could do better. We all could do better. And I think sometimes. And that's not a racial difference because sometimes I will hold my purse tighter too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So why am I gonna get mad? Why is the white lady a Karen when she does it, and I'm clenching my purse even tighter?
I agree with you.
That's
I
just
agree.
the reality of it.
I agree with you 100%.
And definitely now, because it seems as though it is not safer now, definitely, before you can, think about when we grew up. Our parents, the street lights is who said you came in the house.
Yes.
You be all down the street somewhere, riding your bike, playing in so-and-so front yard.
Yeah.
They didn't know where you was. We didn't have no cell phones.
Right.
But we knew when those street lights come on, you better be in
this
store,
house.
you know?
Did y'all have to be inside by the street lights, or did it end with us?
Yes.
You had
Yes.
you had
Yes.
a
The street lights was with me too. Yes.
Look, I have a 21-year-old. Yes, he had to be in. If he went outside, he was a gamer though. He was a gamer.
Yeah.
But that was still a thing. So I feel like a lot of the times, especially going back to the education, I would love to see more of the schools that are open, started by Black churches or whatever, base more on education.
Yeah.
You know, base more on, because and I'm not going to say what private school it was. I worked in a private school that they told me that if I didn't lay the kids, we wasn't worried about the academics. Lay them out in the spirit.
What? And that's where we have a problem too. A lot of our schools is them trying to overpower religion over education. But that's a whole nother subject. That's a whole nother subject.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things with, yes, we have the issue with public schools not wanting to teach our kids, but the places that we have that are alternative to that, are they up to par? And if they're not up to par, what can we do to make them up to par?
Yes, and that's the big question tonight is, what can we do as a community to help our youth in our community when it comes to educating each other and ourselves? This weekend, I'm taking my nephews to the Legacy Museum in Montgomery. I've been before. The best museum I've probably ever been to before, hands down. I didn't get to go where they have the plaques where the names were written down, but I mean the museum is definitely worth the $5. It's only $5, I believe, to get in.
When are you going this weekend?
I'm going Saturday.
Oh, Montgomery is having a huge type of Juneteenth type of thing, so I'll give you the information for that. Because I'm the representative for EJI community. Got the sand collection thing that we did.
Right, because they have that there. Yeah.
So ours is in that museum, but I'm still in touch with the folks over there, so they're having a huge celebration. So I'll give you the information.
Yeah, because I feel like I talk to my nephews and I ask them certain questions, and I ask them, have you ever heard somebody call you this, or have you heard somebody call you that, and I tell them, have you ever heard about this, and they don't know nothing.
Not a thing.
They don't know nothing.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
And even having to explain to them different ethnicity. I have a nephew his mom is Puerto Rican. And I was playing Orisha music one day. And my nephew turned around and said, "Uncle Jet, what's that? They ain't talking no English." I said, "Well, but your family is Puerto Rican. He doesn't know the difference of or respecting other people's. They feel like, well, if you ain't like this, if you ain't how I talk, then you an outsider, And so I have to explain to them, like you can't treat people a certain type of way because there was a time when people treated you a certain type of way because of XYZ. So I think we definitely have to start creating programs to where, even if it's just start off with after school programs like locally or getting our educators. I know one thing I will say about I'm not going to say a lot. A few of the elders in our community is some people will have the knowledge, but they don't want to share it. But I do know that some people have the knowledge and they waiting for somebody to come ask. And I think, just like City Councilwoman said, like we do have to find those people who are waiting to tell us the stories. My great grandmother, she passed last year at 94. And she used to tell us, she was from Birmingham, Alabama. And when we was kids, man, she was always telling us stories how the Klan hung a guy on her street. She still remember the funeral home that came and cut him down and what her sisters them did. And it was very cool a couple months ago, I was able to go see her childhood home. It was just cool, man, to see that. And to go to the church where, the 16th Street Baptist Church, where the young girls to actually participate in a Sunday service there and to feel the energy. Like you can even still feel the heavy energy going there. I think it's very important that we continue to educate our youth on not just the trauma, but how can we prevail from the trauma. There were people who were prosperous and they look just like us. Don't ever feel like, and two, I don't like the fact that a lot of people in the Black community, they push the fact that you have to play sports to be successful.
Yeah.
That annoys me. You have to be a rapper to be successful. You don't have to do that. Like, that's why I take my nephews different places to show them you could be an artist. I had like little nights where we could paint. If you want to paint, my nephew came over last night. "Uncle Jen, can I paint?" You know what I'm saying? To show him. And he plays sports. He played football and basketball. And I show him though that's not the only way out.
I pulled the statistics up in my middle school history class because I had a lot of them that played, sports and stuff like that at the community things. And, if we're talking about what it is that you want to do, where you want to go, the first thing they say is, I want to play football, I want to play basketball, I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. So I pulled the statistics up of how many actually make it. How many actually make it? And they're looking like, that's a lot of zeros. Yes, it's a lot of zeros in front of the number. So what does that mean? That is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction that actually make it. So let's talk about these scientists that, we're going to do this project on, because they used their brain to be able to get where they were, to get the notoriety that they had. A lot of them don't understand that there is another way out.
Yeah. Even if it's just being a police officer. I hate the fact that people push the fact that if somebody does join the force, they say, oh, he the snitcher. But y'all complain about the force when we should be adding more people that look like us and understand our communities in the force, so we could stop having to worry about if I get pulled over. Every time I get pulled over, I'm calling somebody on FaceTime. We shouldn't have to live like that, though.
But that's the same thing with being a teacher. The reason that and the last place that I actually decided that I wanted to go work at, I walked into my interview and said, they asked, why do you want to teach here? Because I want to teach kids that look like me. Point blank. I'm going to let you know the reason I'm here is for them. Give them here.
I feel
And we need that.
I literally left my job back in 2021 to go work with Dream Defenders because I wanted to work with people that look like me, because I was tired of working with people who didn't. And I was like, so it's the touching of the hair. And then it was just too much going on in the stores, and I felt very uncomfortable.
And then even with being in those positions, you have to be in the position. And I really feel like I was put in positions where I can't be my normal self and pop off, that I'm going to have to be professional.
Authentically.
So I'm going to have to be able to tell this teacher that just said something derogatory about this student that don't understand that she just basically called you the N-word. And I'm going to have to approach her and say, hey, this is why we can't do that. And where I was working, they literally strategically put only one black teacher in every grade. That's it.
Yeah, I've heard of somebody else that was working for a school locally, and they quit because of that. And they was like, every time I go home, depressed because I see the difference in how they treat the children that look like us. Yes, he.
So why y'all trying to get back into school?
Okay, as long as we're in there, someone has to speak up for us.
No, I mean, and not take them children with you.
Look, I want to. I want to.
I get where you're going.
School. I want my own school.
Yeah.
Like, I want to. Now, this is where we go back to the sitting down to write out how to be able to get to the places that you need to be. And that's where a lot of us, even if we have the desire to do it, that's where we lack. We may lack the fact of sitting down, or lack the fact of having like minds that want to do the same thing. So take them with me, yes.
So,
But I remember a couple years ago, it was Lady Betsy DeVos, that lady who's over the Department of Education. She was at a graduation at Tuskegee. I think it was Tuskegee. And she got booed. But I can't remember which school it was. It was a black. It was a black. It was an HBCU. It was a private HBCU. And I guess she was thinking that, it's private. These are the ones she can. I didn't boo the lady. Maybe she's disillusioned on other points. But remember, she just told us she went to an all black high school.
Right.
So what world are we really living in right now?
Right.
Are we ignoring the fact that this sister just said she graduated from an all black high school?
Right.
So don't be disillusioned by the fact that it's not working. I think it was Zora Neale Hurston who wrote something. You all can Google it. I can't remember now, but she was talking about the difference between. She said the only difference, if and this was during the era of school desegregation. She said if the only difference between a black school and a white school is like the absence of white people, she's like, well, then what are y'all doing? Right? And
That's a good point.
What sets you aside? What sets you apart other than it's just all black people going here? What really sets you apart?
but I think what it also speaks to is that our fear. Well, I don't know. And you're the teacher, so I'm really asking you: do we feel we're inadequate? Do we feel that we can't educate ourselves? Like, is there something in us that makes us think we aren't good enough?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so. This is not everybody's story.
Okay.
I feel like we have we have to confine ourselves to a space to where it's only so much we can do. Let me tell you something. Certain ethnicities can win a soccer game and they can lose a soccer game and they'll tear the whole city up. Why can't we do the same thing when it comes to educating our children? What it can
Don't tear the city up.
don't tear the city up. Do not tear the city up. I'm just saying, but why can't we? I'll never forget, man. I go to the last couple of years, I've been going to the Ancestor Festival in New Orleans. Can't wait to go this year. Can't wait to bring it here because I love the fact that they walk down the streets. They don't need no police. They walk down the streets and they own the streets and don't nobody say nothing to them. I feel like once we get to a level to have that confidence, to know that we could do X, Y, Z, and to stop feeling like we have to say all of our moves openly.
Yes.
They'll know when it's open. This is what it is.
So in other words, you just, okay, I got you. Look. That get right. I
we have to learn our people learn how to talk in code. We had songs in code. Our people so creative. You had your hair braided and it was a code. You know what I'm saying? So we have to learn how to respect the code. I remember growing up, my grandparents, I grew up in it, and I'm pretty sure most of us grew up in an era where you don't sit around grown folks when grown folks talking. And if it was a time when we had to, our people start talking pig Latin. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We have to learn how to start talking the code and don't apologize by how you feel about it. Once we see that it's a problem going on in our communities, we see that people are moving. My people on my dad's side, when they moved from Alabama, they moved to the 10-yard community. We see how drastically that area, I stay in that area, and I see right across the street, you have these big houses.
Whose fault is that, though?
It's ours. It's out. Let me see. You have people, and I was just talking to my sister about this, will sell dope on the same street they grandma house on. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, you ain't even paying the taxes. The house paid for.
And you ain't even pay the taxes.
You're not paying the taxes. Now, your grandma's house has been torn down, and that's a 2-story house, and you still sell dope on the same street. How can you live with yourself and look at that land like that?
And then what? Call me.
Yeah.
Want me to do something? Like, y'all are further beyond what I can do.
Yeah. We have to get to a point where, for one thing, taking accountability for our actions. Okay, owning up to, I let this go down the way that it's going down right now. We have dug ourselves in the hole. We have dug ourselves in a ditch. It ain't a hole because we can get up out here, but we have to do it together. It ain't about who you like. I've worked with people I don't like, but if I respect what you do, I can work with you. I ain't gotta like you. I can respect because we don't even like everybody in our family. You know what I'm saying? And we still. I can work with you because I still love you and I love what you do and I respect what you do. We have to organize like Terry just said, organize. Yep. Organize. We have to organize. Tamika said, what y'all think about the young man who couldn't walk across the stage due to his shoes? And that was Tate, right?
I think that the teacher, anyway. I'm bringing it down. I think that was an issue, especially because when you go back to get ready to get in line, your parents can't be back there with you. You usually don't have your phone and stuff. You're not allowed to have these things. And you get me here, and then when I saw the shoes that he had on, how can you say that these are not dress shoes? how can you even say that these are not dress shoes?
Well, you have to look at systematic racism comes in different forms, right? I remember being in the Carolinas, and there was certain clubs we couldn't go into if you had on certain things, right? And we realized that all of the things and Seville used to be like this.
Yes.
All the things on the list were things that we wore. Oh, you got strings on your pants. You can't come up in here.
Yep.
You know, so I think that a lot of, and that goes into two of us owning up and creating these schools and educational departments for each other, is because with them, if we're going to continue and let them play their game, we have to go by their rules, because you decided that I'm going to continue to let my child go through XYZ. So now you can't wait to graduation day to say I got a problem with that when you've been letting this go on for 12 years, you know? Yeah. So I think that goes back into accountability.
Yep. Show up to school board meetings.
Yeah, and go up to
school board meetings.
Yeah, and see what city councilwoman said. I remember a white woman told me, I was talking to one day, and she said, well, I'm going to tell you my issue is a lot of black people have issues what's going on in Pensacola and what's going on down here in the neighborhood, but they don't come to the city council meetings. And I was like, you know what? Because I don't have my ass down there, and I should.
Well, let me say this. Because I hear that, especially in the position that I'm in. I think in the beginning when we started, I was talking about some of the approaches that our people made for justice, and often marching and protests and stuff. So I'm the first generation to be born in my family with all my rights intact. At least by law, right? I came after the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the Fair Housing Act. I was born after all that. All of us were. I'm noticing, after I've delved into it more, when we still use that civil rights model of engaging government, that is really for people who don't have any kind of leeway into the system. Whether you like it or not, those folks fought to give us some type of leeway into the system. Now there's a process. All you gotta do is fill out a form, right? Yeah. You don't have to plan a protest. Just give me the form. Yeah. It's online and digital. Just fill it out, right? So, and they will listen. So, and we all listen. So, I think we often don't take that approach. And this is an outcome of what our people marched and fought and died for. The fact that they just wanted us to have a seat at the table. They didn't want extra weird stuff, extra special privileges, anything extra more than anyone else. They just wanted regular. Let me just have access, just regular access, right? And we aren't even benefiting
from that regular access.
From the regular. So what's happening is and I'm just gonna be honest. I see both political parties getting hijacked by people on the extreme of each, right? Matter of fact, and I don't think any political party in Pensacola is far out, but I'll see on television how, like, the alt-right people are pretty much taking over the Republican Party. So much so that middle ground, like, just regular Republicans, I'm like, was George Bush really that bad? Have you kind of thinking, like, was he really that awful? I don't know, right? And maybe he wasn't, but at the time he seemed so. But compared to what we're facing now, he was all right.
I think the same thing about Trump.
It says a lot. In our generation, it has us looking at the past, like, maybe that guy who was throwing us in jail was just okay, right?
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's what they're thinking about now with Trump and DeSantis.
Right.
I'm
like,
it's not really that bad.
Yeah.
Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Because, y'all got a whole...
I could appreciate Trump because Trump told us who he was. We didn't have to figure it out. He showed us.
I think you're definitely going to see more black people vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with that.
He definitely showed exactly who he was.
Yes.
And then even if you look at it, really, he's showing you how to get out of a lot of stuff too. Watch him.
That is with them taxes.
Watch him.
I'm trying to tell you, y'all better. I advise everybody to get more information about a trust. Definitely get more information about that, man. Get more information. Don't be so eager to purchase a home, which is, I ain't gonna get into that. Just don't get so eager to purchase a home and forget about purchasing the land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very recently, we had the 11 law firm come to my district at the Cobb Center, and they help people with legal matters. And one of the biggest ones was how to, I don't even know the proper term for it, but, you know, in your will, when you pass something on to the next person or whatever, very often the African American community loses property because Big Mama dies, it goes to 5, 10 kids, right? They living all over the country. You can't get those signatures. And that's what happened to my people's house in Belmont the Villiers. So they were giving people advice on how to tie that up. And remember, that concept really just came because it's, you know, we have all the children. We think people are going to stay where they are or at least just move to Chicago or just move to
New York.
It ain't going to be
Yeah.
too far away. But now we have all these social conditions and this pushing us out. And so when she passes away, it has all these heirs. The heir property, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So they had to have a conversation with those folks. Like, look, you're going to die. I promise you that. So it's best that you put your affairs in order now so your children won't have to worry about it. And they helped them. They helped them with it. They're coming back. I asked them to come back to the same place, really. I'm hoping that they'll return, but they were really helpful about giving the free legal advice. And people came just asking all kinds of questions that you would normally have to pay an attorney for.
Oh, please put that out there.
And they, I'll definitely share when they return. And they brought like the top folks, right? You know how it's like Levin, Papantonio, da-da-da-da-da. They brought all the da-da-da-da-da people too, right? And they just answered questions all day.
Definitely learn the difference too between a trust and a will. There is a difference.
And black people, please get because my father had 17 properties when he passed. 2 commercial, 15 houses, condos, apartments, whatever. We have 2 now. That's the one I live in and the one my brother has.
The only reason I'm able to serve on city council is because I still live in a family-owned house. And people are saying that they can't find housing in the district. And, you know, they want more apartments built. Now, I'll say this because I'm in this setting that's not on the dais. I would never say it on the dais, but I'm like, where your grandma house at? Like, that's the first thing that I think. But it's just like, oh, this happened. So we have to, all I can do is maybe get you an apartment.
Yep.
So you don't own anything anymore, but you're fighting just to get an apartment so you can have somewhere fair to live because the cost of everything has gone up. And we see the cost of everything is in spaces that were African American neighborhoods, and we can't afford to return to that. So it becomes a bit disheartening for me when there's this demand for adequate housing and affordable housing when not long ago you had it.
Yeah.
And you can just pay the taxes.
And now it's harder, but now it's harder for me to make sense of it. And not just make sense of it, but to get it done when we had a series of meetings in the CRA. I'm chair of the Community Redevelopment Association. I'm chair now. And there was a apartment complex in where there's land. There used to be apartments at what's the public housing?
It's Scambia Arms.
No, it's the one by the waterfront.
Aragon Court.
Yeah.
Aragon Court. Yeah, that's right, Aragon Court. So Aragon Court was a former housing project, but because even the housing projects were segregated back then, this was the white housing project. And hint, the white folks were able to raise into the middle class, and then the black people were not. So then it became a black housing project. So that's the weird part, right? Like, well, what happened to where you just had to replace it with black people, and how come the white people were able to get regular houses and we weren't? Like, that's the first thing. But most people don't even remember it as the white housing project. So then it became the black housing project. And remember that area, there's still a church in that area.
Yes.
I think it's the oldest
black church.
Baptist black church. I think it's the oldest black church, period, in the city, surviving. And when a developer was trying to get that land, now mind you, the previous councils had laid the code and the plan, and then they just, pushed their way into it being something different. But I wanted it to be attainable housing. I'm not going to necessarily say affordable because I recognize it's by the waterfront, it's a little fancy and all that, but at least attainable to where a working class person could move in. And I thought to myself, well, this is clearly something that people will get behind and champion. and nobody came to the CRA meetings. So I was standing my ground by myself, but I stood it to the end. I didn't vote for it. I never voted for anything related to giving it to them because, people were coming, but either they didn't have time or they just did not come to, the meeting. I will say that they called me, which allowed me to have a little bass in my voice when I stood my ground because they were calling.
They were calling.
But the people that were calling were older people. But the people who need the housing aren't older people.
Yeah.
So, in what way and what can we do besides Dream Defenders or Black Voters Matter? Because the issues aren't always about the vote. The issue about housing and jobs and other points are kind of serve as in a conglomerate that we think you can get by voting. But if you're silent about your housing condition, if you're silent about this and that, and not trying to not just complain, but trying to come bring it to City Hall or County Commission, when you were silent when it was time to vote on giving these people the property they asked for, whereas you could have given it to somebody who was going to build something affordable. We could have had alternate plans. Then it becomes harder to justify why.
And
right?
I think a lot of people, I know for me, I know it was being educated on it or even knowing. Like it took a lot for me, and I'm a researcher. Like I go and research things. So it took a lot for me to even get to the point of knowing a lot of the stuff when it comes to finances. And that's also something that you're not taught in school, even in high school, where I see other counties and other states, you have to take a finance class to be able to graduate. That's one of those things. You don't know the common sense stuff unless you go and look for the common sense stuff yourself.
Well, what do you all think about the legislation with pretty much dissolving? Remember, there was the high school level, but then there's the college level that challenges public money going into programs, quote unquote DEI programs. Although I will admit they do not even know what a DEI program is. But in the legislation, it's written really weird. But what do you think about how, and as an educator, I'm asking you, what do you think about the outcome of that in Florida? So you have it on one end, K through 12, and then another end, you have the college.
I said, and the crazy part is, if you started teaching in Escambia County 2 years ago, there was a video. There was a video that we did on diversity, and I just popped the
keep
thing.
talking.
There was a video on diversity and inclusion and stuff like that. I sat in the back of the cafeteria because I wanted to see how many people were uncomfortable. And when I say half of that cafeteria was uncomfortable, they were so uncomfortable. It was like, hold on, are y'all hitting? Like, I mean, it was like people was taking jabs in their back, invisible jabs in their back, because they were just like, oh, we shouldn't say that. We shouldn't walk up and touch their hair. Like, I mean, it was crazy. Like, yeah, it was things that, and it was very common sense things. Common sense isn't common to everybody.
True.
But it was very, but they were so uncomfortable about. So I see where this came from. I see where the whole, we don't want to deal with diversity, and I'm gonna just say I feel like that's the reason that our superintendent is no longer our superintendent. We gotta.
Yeah, I have questions about that, but we can talk about it offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is crazy to me is saying I'm taking away inclusion or equity because everybody should be equal anyway. How silly do you sound? This thing isn't equal. You know it's not.
But-
you are literally taking away, history out of the schools that deal with us. Have you seen most of the books that they've taken out of these libraries in the school? I promise you, half of them library books have nothing to do with LGBTQRA ABCDEFG.
Yeah.
It is African American stuff.
Right.
That's what's coming out of these libraries.
I think that's another thing that kind of annoys
Well,
me.
we did that though. The legislator who of Canby County, who actually lives in District 5, wrote the legislation for the colleges. But then we elected him. So there you go. There's that.
Wow.
So we must like it. So that's to me. I'm like, if you did it, you must like it.
You
Wow.
gotta like
So I can't, say much. And people were
Right.
asking me, well, what do you think about Rep. Andrade? And I know him. And you're like, cool guy. I think, but that's what he decided he was gonna do. And now you have to deal with it. Or even in all the little legislative folks, they supported it.
Yeah.
We live in a red pocket, and so to me, the way to challenge it isn't focusing on, I'm gonna have you removed because that's the only way I have access to my rights. Get your own. That's what I'm saying. Get your own. And
like somebody said on there,
that way
I told my kids at home.
you don't have to beg anybody for anything.
Right.
You do it on your own.
Right.
And we know we're in a position right now to where our government doesn't see things the way we see it. But remember, they represent the majority of their voters, of their constituents, the district. That's what they see. Those are the people that they're going to represent. So if you are in a position to where you're just in the minority in that voice, check out. And I remember somebody was arguing about, but then you take out the money. I don't know exactly how it works, but maybe the dollars.
It does. According to, I think it's like $400 every student.
Okay, so I don't really know how it works.
Yeah.
But for me, if you're neglecting my child, I will take them and my money. You have to deal with it, right? So,
because every year,
like, I don't understand why Black people, and I know I'm diverging from how most Black people think. I totally get it, but why are we still the sacrifice for all the things, right? How often are we going to give so much and not see the return? And we see that's what's happening in the education system. And I know, like, most Black people want to be in public schools. I get it. I understand. I'm the lone voice on this. That's fine. But how self-sacrificing are we expected to be? Like, how much of ourselves do we have to give in the name of
do they
everybody?
see themselves as self-sacrificing though?
Who?
The parents.
Yeah.
Do they see themselves like that? I think a lot of parents see this as my only option. And I've had parents talk to me several times over telling me that, this is my only option.
Let me tell you something. This is something I'm noticing just from being in office. And I can't really vocalize it yet, and I really haven't been in long enough because, it's my I got elected 2020, so I'm new, I'm still trying to figure everything out. But it seems to me that in the grand scheme of things, when all the energy is being directed towards posturing, like, the school books, or the gay rabbit, what's not being discussed is, where are these jobs we supposed to have?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then we spend all our time talking about the gay bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, where y'all work?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So, but you're not bringing the jobs here that we need. And then you put us in a position to where we have to duke it out about the bunny rabbit. Or it wasn't the rabbit. What was it?
It was the penguin.
The penguins. It was the penguins, right? So I'm spending all my energy, and everybody only has so much energy. So I go into these meetings and I'm arguing to my heart about the penguins. Then I go home to my little crappy job. Whereas, are you from here? Is your parents' job still around?
No, my mom was a manager at Kmart, and my father was an aircraft mechanic on the NAS, and they moved his job to Texas, and Kmart is no longer even existing.
That's what we need to be talking about. So all this other stuff is an effect of that. So we can't can't even say what we're going to do for self or establish this, because this other stuff is a distraction. Where are the jobs?
Why the jobs?
And a lot of...
And she just told you, this both our parents.
Yeah.
Mama and daddy. and their jobs don't even exist
anymore.
So whatever money you would have made had that job been around, you could have done whatever you thought your freedom looked like. But the jobs don't even exist anymore. And I know people don't want to talk about, you know how you have like the Booker T. Washington versus Du Bois kind of thing. And I'm not even gonna lie, I'm like Du Boisian all the way. Like, and I'm not even, y'all know me, this is really what it is. So, but then I look at it and I'm like, well, that's only because of the people who came before me, who were very much on that Booker T. Washington kick. And I'm into arts, I'm into museums, gallery night, you know, we have all this wonderful stuff. I want you to look at things and dream, right? But I can't do that because we are all in a situation to where right now we can't even dream because we can't even eat.
We can't eat.
And I would
ask
our leaders, our legislators, where are those jobs we used to have? Go get those. Like you can go get my money, right? And then I'll decide what I want to do after that because then I have options. And I am shocking myself even saying this. This is not how I normally, you know, but we need to focus on rebuilding this black middle class. And
because it's disappearing.
Because and I would also say this. Because I see the benefits of growing up in one. That's the only reason I can sit up here and imagine when I did the gallery night, and we were like, well, we just want black art in here. We want to tell a story. I want to, you know, imagine. That's what I feel like doing today. I'm only able to do that because my mom and daddy work for the county. You know, that is, you know, good jobs. Or my grandfather worked for the railroad. That's the only reason I'm able to be in this place of like being spoiled because I know I am. I'm not denying that. but that's what it is, right? And until we redirect what this structure is built on and hold people accountable, and right now, I mean, what's the brother name or the guy's name, Alexander Rade? If that's what you choose, that's what you use to get us riled up. I'm not asking you about the Black History books.
Right.
Where them jobs at?
What a job.
Give him the jobs, Alex. Like you wasting my time talking about all this other thing about that. Plus, you know, the teacher is going to be Miss Morello from Everybody's Hate Chris anyway. Yeah. Like I know that. She's not going to know how to teach it. Yeah. But go get my money, Alex. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
I'm looking at that.
I don't think that's the problem.
Yeah. So instead of even worrying about what that man is doing, because he lives in District 5, probably live in a house that used to belong to some African American teacher back in the 60s. Anyway, so he is clear, and that delegation is clear that you are disposable. So what do we have to do to say? To put ourselves back, if we are deciding to stay in the system, if we are going to be here, if we are going to demand rights here, number one, I suggest, and this always happens historically, you don't ask for the privileges. You don't put the privileges in the front. So as much as I love museums, as much as I love art exhibits, even though I was able to with the previous mayor, establish a cultural affairs and all that. I know that none of that, and even though I want a Black History Museum, I already have the building and everything. I know that can't happen unless people have money to visit it. I know that people won't be in the position to give to these higher, lofty, things that are higher on the scale. What is that? The hierarchy of needs. You can't be at the top of this pyramid if you gotta eat. Right. So if we're busy being hand to mouth, so even with me, I'm kind of silent on what the priorities are because I know the priorities have to change based on what the people need. Right. So what I would like to see us do is be more focused on putting ourselves in a place where we can get more jobs. And as a side note, the civil rights. 1960, the March on Washington was about what? Jobs and freedom, right? You just can't be about freedom now. You just can't be about you out here wanting to dress like you want to dress and do what you want to do. Right. Jobs and freedom. They have to go together because when you get one, you get the latter, then you get the former, and that's just kind of how it pairs. And as long as we're choosing to have this, be under this capitalism, you know,
Oh yeah, because
that's what you sign up for.
you definitely. I feel like resting bitch face would definitely not be a thing for Black women if we had the job that we did not have to go to, or the support dealing with our kids if we did not have to go, you know, straight from work to be a mama to, you know, doing all this other house cleaning and all this other stuff. If that wasn't your reality.
But here's the thing. So I'm from Pensacola. Family's from here, been here a long time. I was raised up knowing what my job was. I knew what I had to contribute very early on. It was a group of us as children who were raised up in this thing, right? And even with that, I was like, okay, rights, inclusion, opportunity. But I really do love this history stuff. So I went, you know, got my history degrees, humanities degrees, museum studies stuff. Came back home, ready to do it, ready to go. And guess what? Y'all Negroes was poor, right?
No money,
right? Like y'all had money when I left. When I came back, y'all was broke.
Yeah.
Like what just happened
Yeah.
to this community here? Because I know that the people who were sending me off and sending me money when I was in school and looking out for me, like it was gone. They closed a couple of the jobs. The middle class was shrinking and upper middle class shrinking, or they just, you know, wiped their hands up and had to go away. The children were, now everybody's in Atlanta. You know, people didn't come back and keep up that class of folk. And I'm not even saying it to be classist. I'm just recognizing that when you have these class structures, just as like a side kind of benefit, and I'm seeing it from being in council, these organizations ask for contributions that never asked for contributions from the government before. It was money from these Black middle class folks who handled that. And regardless of the class construct, it was still us taking care of each other.
Right.
And now that we're gone, or we don't have those same opportunities, they have to ask the government. But we need these programs. We absolutely need these programs. So we see ourselves having to give to them. But I remember, because I'm from here, I remember that it was the community folk who sustained these things.
Right.
But then when I say that, we want to argue about class systems. Like, if you don't but go make a lot of money, run this program and stuff, sit up here about your feelings about you know.
Yeah.
So when you're in a tight position, when you're in a bind, unfortunately, we have to sacrifice some of the freedoms that we might have had, and because we know nobody is going to sit here and talk to you if you're broke. You have to put yourselves in a position to where, okay, I might before have wanted the arts council or that thing, but I can't have that anymore. And if I myself have to give up the things I want, you think I'm tolerating you talking about you want to sit up here and do whatever, and you don't have to give up anything? And the very point is, the only reason I'm in office is because I had to give up working at the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C., so I can make $20,000 up here with you.
Yeah.
Like if I'm losing, everybody's losing. like that's really what it's become.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be broke, you know, and have to give myself to my community, then you better go as far as you possibly can. Because when I'm done with this place and I go make my real money, you're gonna miss me.
Yeah.
So do what you can. Come to all these meetings. Speak up every time. Because if I'm the one that they said, hey, you grew up with us, you need to come back home because we need you to come do this. And I'm going to do it, that's cool. But who's going to be next?
Yeah. Oh.
That's a good question.
I know, right?
That's a good question.
I feel like that's
so if I lost all my career advancement, and if I've, you know, done this to sacrifice for my community because I want us to be successful, and all the people who came before me did this, so one of us could have the opportunity. Remember, my seat is one that had to go to the Supreme Court for us to have. Those folks didn't do that for us to sit up here and
not do anything.
Chill. Why do you think freedom is chilling. And why do you think they did all that for you to, I don't know, do whatever that stuff they be doing, right?
That's what she was getting to be amazing.
You have to be serious.
Right.
It's a serious time. It's a serious matter. You know, to quote my sorority, but
Yeah, I'm gonna say you.
but this is not the time to sleep. This is not the time to just act like we're not up against so
Something.
much.
Yeah. Right.
So not only are we looking at people who don't even see us as equals, we're in a unique position to where we looking at people who don't even see us as humans.
Come on now.
Listen,
you know, right?
That part.
And I personally am not going to, and I say that personally as my personal, not representing any kind of government. It's not worth it to me to go back and forth with you about certain things about like your identity. Like you don't know if you want to dress weird.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you don't, baby, you don't make enough money to dress weird. You can't dress that weird right now.
Yeah.
If you have to put on a suit and tie for your job interview, that's just what you got to do.
Yeah.
Especially since you've chosen to not own your own business. Now, when you own your own business, you can dress whatever you want to dress like. But I can't. Of all the things we have to fight for, I can't prioritize who you feel that you are because your hair is all these colors or whatever. And I do, even as I'm saying this, I feel like I'm getting old. Mm-hmm. Right? I sound like an old person. But you know, I've never been offended by Black folks taking more of a kind of more conservative position. And I'm probably right now.
But I feel like that's
40s,
more
I'm probably
wisdom
more,
than
like, is
being
it from
old.
growing?
It's
wisdom.
You're understanding, like you said. You okay? I understand what you want to be, but at this point in time, right now, you have to get this job.
Yeah.
And guess what? They don't want you. You gonna starve? So it's kind of one of those things of, and I think,
and mind you, I say this wearing my hair wrapped up all the time. All the time. So you've only gotten to the phase of you wear your hair wrapped. That's it. And
literally.
the people before me, like that's as far as you can go. So,
literally.
But then you sold off all your wealth. So you're going to have to do something else if you're going to do more than wrap your hair and wear African clothes.
Listen, because you letting down the house go.
So I know.
Look,
you sold your grandma's house, so you can't.
So you gotta pay rent.
You gotta do it. Yeah.
So you ain't got nowhere to go now.
You ain't got nowhere to go.
So you gotta figure this thing out.
I agree.
Like this is what I wear. That's as far as we got.
Yeah.
So now if you want to go do some extra stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, you
So
gotta get to that point.
yeah, we a couple weekends away from Juneteenth, and let me tell you, man, just like you said, a couple years ago we did an event for Juneteenth, and honestly, that was my first time even hearing about Juneteenth.
What?
Yes, when we did the event.
That.
Yeah, that's what made me go so hard when we did the event, because I was like, I never even knew about this before. But that goes in, like I said, the education. Our parents not educating us on who we were, who we are. Okay, and I realized with me, I do a lot of ancestry work. I done found all the way up to my great granddaddy, right? And I realized that a lot of things that I'm interested in. I mean, even I remember this time I wanted to go work on the railroad. Just found out from doing the family reunion work. Oh, you know, your great granddaddy worked on the railroad.
Awesome.
And I want to be a Mason. Come to find out, every generation in my family had a Mason.
Yeah, you have to be a relative or something like that too.
Yeah, right. So I'm seeing that the work that I'm doing, I'm supposed to be doing the work for one. But the thing is, our history, man, I found my great grandfather in a book called Alabama Outlaws and Scoundrels.
Wow.
And his name was Edmund Parker from Alabama, right? And I remember my great grandmother, because it was her grandfather, would talk about him. And she would say, Dad, Pa ain't like no niggas, because he said we don't stick together. And when I saw him in the book, my grandfather had to run away from the area of Alabama he was living in. Kind of find out he was also part Creek. And because him and some of his friends, some European descendants, came over and tried to take their land and their donkeys. And my granddad was like, hell no. So they killed him. And so the Klan ended up running him out of town. And he had changed his name. Now, when I look up his records, I find him as Edmund. Then it goes to Ed Parker, right? Wow. And so it was just really interesting seeing that, like seeing like I've never seen this man before, but just knowing like this is who I come from, like this is what gives me the motivation because it was already in us. Especially like when I get to my Native American side, I remember being a kid and acting like an Indian, and then I was sitting out. Now when I talk to my mom's side, all of them, the elders, they don't go by African American. Mom was Indian. I'm an Indian. That's what they go by. And so I think that pushed me a lot to do what I want to do with this. And it pushed me a lot to educate myself on the different events that happen in Black history. So for me to come up on Juneteenth, and I was like, man, I'm just now hearing about this. I done been all to Africa Town in Mobile multiple times. I've been even to Kazula's, named after, so, and it was like, I didn't even know about Juneteenth, so I feel like it's very important. And I like the fact that, and I'm going to give credit where it's due, City Councilwoman Broughton really put me on game. And it's very, 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 very motivating to see how she's pushing it in Pensacola, Florida right now. Okay. And for a lot of us, we never knew. One of our issues when we did our Juneteenth event was that it was another committee that did a Juneteenth event. We didn't know. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know because we never had heard about nobody doing nothing. And so it's very, very important, like you said before, to go talk to your elders. It's very, very important, though, for also our elders to pass the stories along. And so I know we got Juneteenth season. We are in Juneteenth season right now. You know what I'm saying? Now, so I want City Councilwoman to kind of educate us a little bit about that and what's going on.
Cool. So I was fortunate in that I've known about Juneteenth like my whole life, right? And celebrated it here in Pensacola. Glad to see it growing. Glad to see it being recognized as a federal holiday. I don't think Florida recognizes it as a Florida.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So
We're working on it.
Yeah. So whatever happened 2 years ago to where we kind of got I think the country did, and we were just like, okay, well, let's jump in now. And a group of us decided to just go for it. And last year, the previous mayor, Robinson, gave me a little bit of money to say, okay, go do something. So everyone came together, and they took that little bit of money, they stretched it, and turned it into an event. Now, it was hot last year. Y'all was like close to 100.
I was out there.
Right?
Yeah.
And this year, I think it might be like 2 degrees cooler. but
yeah.
So celebrating emancipation, though, in Pensacola has been since the end of slavery. It was in May. So Florida's recognition of emancipation was in May. So remember, they had to walk to all the places, they traveled to all the places to tell people, because they definitely knew. But in Texas was the last place to get it, because I think something about they wanted the last crops to come in, they didn't tell the people or something like that. But Florida was in May, and we've been celebrating it in May. And even in the old records and old newspaper articles, I see where they recognize it in May. And it's either recognized January 1st, New Year, Emancipation Proclamation, or by state, Florida being May, June being Texas. And so I decided, well, let's do May and June, right? Because why not, right?
Right.
And that's how Journey to Juneteenth came about. The state of Florida said, sure, if that's what you all want to do. So we and not St. Augustine, but where's Gainesville? We both chose Journey to Juneteenth as the theme, and other people do like maybe Journey to Freedom, or is some spin on it to celebrate it. And plus, everybody just kept doing the same event on the same day, and it was too competitive.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Talk about community over competition. So we have this whole schedule of events from May 20th, which is Florida's emancipation, to Juneteenth. But our people, some of them turned in their stuff late. So this time it just so happens to be a few days after. But most events are from May 20th to Juneteenth. And the calendar of events, I'm so proud of this calendar. Like when I asked y'all to show up, y'all showed up. And I was just in awe, because we have everything from, and here's the thing, even white folks. And I know some cities have issues like with the, we've seen the viral posts of the restaurant having like watermelon fried chicken stuff, right? Like we didn't have any drama like that,
Or the poster where it said Juneteenth
And it had the two white
couple.
people. Yeah.
We didn't have all that. So all of the people who aren't of African descent knew that you had to center the freedom story. So one group that stands out in particular is a group. Did y'all know we had a puppet troupe here in Pensacola?
No.
They have the big puppets. Yeah. So they're doing one that tells the Brer Rabbit tale. And we know Brer Rabbit, the rabbit being the trickster and that's how it ties into African storytelling. And so he sent me a picture of them making their puppets, and they're going to do a puppet show and share about what it means. And I was really thankful and fascinated about that. Some of the other ones and all this, and then Visit Pensacola stepped up. Last year they put it on the calendar. This year it's on the calendar, so you can see all the events. And so the city is the biggest sponsor, and the city has a list of all the events.
I love that.
Have you seen that?
Yes, I love that.
You're a vendor, right? Right. So, are you all participating?
We are. I'm just not sure of which days yet, but I know we are planning on going out to some.
Okay, awesome. Because all of these are opportunities to share and let people know who you are. But some of the events that stand out to me, and of course I can't say them all because it's like close to 30.
It's a lot.
And it's and welcoming tourists, welcoming everyone to show Pensacola's diversity. So everything from a sister who makes wreaths, she made a special Juneteenth wreath, and even the guest houses that we have, like the Airbnbs, that I specifically went for Black-owned Airbnbs, and it just so happens that all the Airbnbs that I asked to put on this Juneteenth thing, most of them were built in the early 1900s. I was able to find the enslaved person or the emancipated person who lived in them.
Oh, wow.
So all of the houses was the home of a person who was basically who gained their freedom.
A freedman.
Yeah, a freedman. A free woman.
Yeah.
And just the power of that, the fact that they live there, sleeping in this house, and it's the same house where a freed person lived, or a person who it's kind of
That's off camera.
Look, I see we both in the same place.
Yeah.
But it is the people saying, "Well, honor me for real." Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honor me for real. So we have something where we're putting a little bit and we're telling their story. One of my high school friends, Cornelia Robinson, who had the Celestine. I'm sure you all have seen that.
Yes.
She's a part of it. And all these people agreed to give discounts.
I see.
And even though I wanted these minority-owned businesses to be money making for them, they were like, "We'll give a discount," just because out of respect of what they're doing.
The cause.
And I had so much people just show us love because remember, this is last year and this year, Juneteenth is the first time that they're saying we're having a cultural heritage type celebration. And let me tell you some of the shocking people you might be surprised that are involved. Daughters of the American Revolution. Fiesta, right? And my thing was, hey, you just got to find some Black folks to work with.
Right.
So Fiesta is doing their event with 100 Black women. And as it was being planned, and I knew this would happen, which is why I introduced them, they realized that they are the same lady. With the hat and the gloves and the diction and the fancy.
Really?
I'm like, I know some of DAR and I know some 100 Black women. I'm like, y'all the same person. You're just different races.
Right.
Exact same lady. I promise you that. So they met, hit it off great, and they're doing a viewing of Belle, movie Belle. Dido Belle, who was about Dido, and maybe Dido was born here, but her mother was definitely here. So they're having a guest speaker come to talk about Dido Belle and how it ties to Pensacola. And that was actually the event that sold out the quickest. And I was just so thankful that they were willing to meet each other and talk and and have this thing together. I think another, and I'm looking through my phone for the calendar, another thing that stands out to me most is, so this was the approach. We have Pensacola that had all these spaces that were horribly segregated. The sites of injustices throughout. Lynchings, even. So for Seville Park to be the site of 2 lynchings, actually, in the 70s. And then our brother, Gregory Thornhill, to host his event at that park is almost a reckoning, and it confronts this past that was lost.
Right.
So we are reclaiming this space in a very serious way, but we're also celebrating,
Right.
and honoring it, right? Then, just in the past, we had, there was the Gulf Coast Culture Fest, and the cemetery cleanup of the Magnolia and Zion cemeteries.
I was just out there.
You were? Okay. And then Five Sisters has a Juneteenth menu, and the thing I like about this menu the most is, well, number one, they called me, they were like, can we put watermelon? We want to be very careful about how we do the watermelon.
Yeah.
We can't just have water. And I was like, good that they looked at it like that. Five Sisters being a black-owned business, partly black-owned business. And the menu itself is designed around African culture. Even the appetizer is foods that we would grow after emancipation, and could even be arrested for growing if we didn't have own our land anymore. If you want a free black person, you didn't own land. So they incorporated things that our people would have to forage for, and put it in and that's like the opening salad. And then it's ribs, barbecue, and the connection between African Americans and barbecue. Barbecue itself is like African American and Native American tradition. And then the sides were good old collard greens, cornbread, macaroni and cheese. Of course, macaroni in the South, having a connection to New Orleans with the Italian people who worked on the ships. And when they met the African American folks who worked in the shipping yards in New Orleans, and that's a dish that came as a result. And we were like, oh, let's just put a whole lot of cheese in it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did, and we made it the macaroni we know today. So, and there are other events like Sister Haley is having one at Seville Park, Beats and Eats.
Yes.
And, part of me, I was just like, okay, it's good to celebrate black culture, but where the money going, right? Who's going to be able to profit off this, and who is going to be able to benefit? And the cultural benefit, sure, but now I'm in the phase of life to where I'm talking about the economic benefit. So I was able to get many, many, many black-owned vendors, or vendors who are African-American, black-owned businesses. And one thing here, and she just showed me some like red, black, and green soap. I'm like,
very,
very.
I got on some of her stuff right now, actually.
Listen,
yeah.
We got the soap on deck.
Yeah.
And she told me it smells like freedom.
It smells like freedom, y'all. It's called emancipation.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And then look, I'm seeing they using their creativity to brand stuff in spaces where they just didn't have a place to do it before. Yeah. So this event is allowing everybody an opportunity to just like really show their stuff.
Right.
And that's one thing we're good at, is showing our stuff.
Yeah.
Gallery night theme is Juneteenth. We have this brother who is in this band. Of course, Ashanti, the mad violinist, is coming.
Love Ashanti.
A friend of mine from Tallahassee. And then there's a group called Gangsta Grass. Gangsta Grass is a award Grammy. No, what is it when you do something you win something Oscar winning?
Okay.
Group, and their band is a mix of. Just hear me out. Let me explain. Hip hop and bluegrass. So now bluegrass itself is an African American musical tradition.
Right.
And somehow we don't know that, but it is. Like the banjo, like where do you think they come from?
Yeah.
And they are fire.
I can imagine.
Now, mind you, the brother who is from the group, he's from one of the brothers who's an MC in the group is from Pensacola. His grandmother, and I grew up in church with him, and he telling you about this story. This brother he had a wonderful job. He was like, you know what? I know I'm at MIT. I know I'm a top engineer. I think I want to play in a band. Like, so to me, that's what's, that, to me, that's freedom. When you have the option to do things like this instead of just, be weird. You're like, I know I can work in corporate America, but I choose to be in a bluegrass band. Yeah. like that's options to me. Yeah. But that's what he did. And he's coming back home. He's they're the featured artists. Some people might know Dolio, who graduated from PHS in the 90s, IB program. His grandmother was a librarian at Alice S. Williams Library, one that we were able to save, and he's coming back with the band, and it helps because he gave us a little discount. So all I had to do was like pull from these talented people who had to leave Pensacola,
Right.
and they're the featured act at Vinyl, but they'll also be performing at Gallery Night, and all of Gallery Night is themed around Juneteenth. So they just announced the show at Artel, and we made sure, I'm a board member for Gallery Night, so we wanted a space for local artists to be able to show their work, and the theme of it is My Ancestors' Wildest Dreams. So we have several artists presenting their artwork, and like one brother's never been in a traditional kind of fancy museum like that. So when I met him, I said, well, what would make him feel included? What would make this kid feel like his work is worth something? His name, can't remember his name. I'm doing so much.
That's all right.
but it's all
Yeah.
in the thing.
Yeah.
So we have amazing talent. We have amazing artists there, and Gallery Night is the theme being Juneteenth, so it ties. Then there is, and you can go to Visit Pensacola and just Google Juneteenth, or the city of Pensacola has some things on here. So I'm just highlighting a few. In fact, I just got interviewed for a story about some of the events, but there's everything from what I just mentioned to that Pensacola Happy Hour thing. That's one of them. Then there's the 309 Punk Project has this artist from Georgia or something. We were able to pull together a lot of famous folks, and also at Gallery Night is the man who is the artist for Black Panther, and he is presenting his work. His name is Sanford Green. He's a Marvel comic artist, and I know he did the Black Panther editions for something, but that's outside my territory. But the Black nerds, y'all know it, and y'all love it. Big thing is a Fort Pickens history tour, to where we're getting the ferry to go to Fort Pickens, and they're going to tell us about the freedom seekers who went there. It's like $20, and I'm going to tell you, that thing is going to fill up quick.
Because Fort Pickens was a part of the Underground Railroad, right?
It's officially recognized as part of the Underground Railroad. I know that if you don't get your ticket like soon, it's going to be gone. It's definitely going to be gone.
My daughter take it tonight.
Yeah, and besides that, then there's the actual big Juneteenth weekend events. So there's little small events leading up to it, and then that Juneteenth weekend, the Watson Family Foundation is again putting on their, it's really called the Family Reunion, and that ties to Juneteenth because after emancipation, one of the priorities for freedmen was to find your family. The origins of the Family Reunion. So here it is. This is a wonderful event in the largest space, and we're all family. All of Pensacola's family now. So we're besides finding our family and convening with our family, we're celebrating emancipation, celebrating freedom with our family, our town. And they're doing everything. I mean, that thing is, Kim Watson, like, that girl is a jewel. Like, I don't know how she...
When I saw everything that she had, I was like...
Last year was good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to do it last year, and I said, as soon as I saw you post, and I saw...
Right,
I'm in there.
I see why Aaron is where he is. Because he has Kim. Kim got his back.
Yeah,
that's just talented,
that's a blessing,
and she knows what she is doing.
Yeah.
So she has the performers on stage. It's like everybody in the world that's performing. So you could just go to that website. You actually follow it on Juneteenth Pensacola. I'm looking it up. If you want to have more. If you want to learn more information about all the events, and then of course if you just Google, Juneteenth Pensacola, then you'll be able to see everything. Yeah. Okay. Look, you see that flyer?
Yeah, I saw the flyer. Yeah, I went last year, and I plan on going this year too.
Yeah, I said, Kim, well, maybe we could take a break so people go get some water. She's like, the show is going on. It was just back to back to back, and it was amazing talent. It wasn't like.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that my name is on the flyer. I felt so special.
Yeah.
Well, what I did was I sent the Pensacola flyers to the folks in Gainesville. It's like, what y'all doing this week? I like your little Juneteenth.
Yeah.
But, it's a healthy competition because, of course, we want everybody in our part of Florida to celebrate it. Everything is under like the 20th of May, Emancipation in Florida, that carries on. And I'm saying it's a journey to Juneteenth because interpretively, we're still in that journey, right? We're still in that journey to freedom. We're still a part of that journey to liberation. And these are the things that we've accomplished along the way. And these are also, it also lets you know what we have to do. So we have everything from entertainment to, if you want to sit and have a learning experience, is more on like an intellectual side of it. And then let me see your map again, your Journey to Juneteenth thing. And of course, there's been events already that have passed that I'm getting great reviews on. So whatever we have left, if you all go to, on Facebook, is Juneteenth Pensacola, and you can see the full list of events. But if you go to visit Pensacola, one thing, we even have the sister who's a psychic. She signed up. Erica.
Awesome.
Okay.
And, you know, there's this very
We got to bring her to the G-spot.
there's a strong tradition of Black women
Spiritual.
Spiritual.
who market their spiritual abilities, because it's not like you can just go get a job wherever you want it.
Right.
So they took their spiritual abilities and they would do readings, and I think I posted a video of Erica in the Daughters of the American Revolution house in Mobile, and it was something about the story about the kid, right? And there's some kind of machine that lights up, and she was telling the machine, like, "Are you here? We'll make the machine light up." And the
EMP.
machine was like,
Yeah.
like, no,
EMP, yeah.
So quick. But she got the machine lighting up, and she coming in.
Yeah, she went to Fort Pickens, and she got a lot of stuff in Fort Pickens.
Like,
Yeah.
like she's the truth.
Yeah.
In a very
much
like,
so.
I don't know exactly how it hits, but she came to my house one day. I was like, "Girl, you got to get out my house." But she was telling it.
Yeah.
So those are the big some of the biggest events, and then there is, of course, again, the R&B Blues Juneteenth Lawn Party, and then there's the Juneteenth Unity Fest, and they're both on the same day. So one is in the Tan Yard, sponsored by a church, Marcel's church, Pastor Marcel's church in the Tan Yard, and I'm sure it's gonna be pretty big. Next to Seville, which is where Pookie, Gregory,
Right.
we know Miles Pookie, is doing his thing. So I would encourage everybody to attend both. And they're only a short distance away, so you could really walk to both to see
Because
what.
he's having the gala, right?
No.
Oh, yes, the gala.
Oh,
Yeah, I gotta remember.
I forgot
So
about
then
that.
there's that too.
Somebody else is doing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's a lot.
It's so much.
Hold on, no, the name. What's the? I know the name. I know this is the COVID interrupting. 'Cause they had it last
Her name
year.
is
The
I see
Black
her face.
Business. Is it the Black?
Yeah.
No. The family goes to my church. I swear I know y'all and I love y'all. And the only thing is that I'm having a mental lapse. But they're having the Juneteenth gala, and it's all fancy, and it's at one of the museums down in the historic village. I think it's at the Museum of Commerce, but you can still find out. Justina, Royster. my
Yeah.
bad.
Oh,
Right.
toenail. Toenail.
Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah. Toenail. Yeah.
Yeah, it just missed me for a while.
Yeah.
So they're doing, and then
What
the
is
other
their
brother,
company,
what's his
First
name?
Class?
I know exactly. I can't think his name right now.
Yeah, only
We good
because-
friends. He came to my event
Yeah,
recently.
only
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to dish y'all. Don't blame it on me. But and he's with them.
This could be somebody coming in.
Oh.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So they're having the gala, and it's a formal but fly. So if you have to do that.
Yeah.
And I think the one that I'm looking. Oh yeah, and Haley is doing the. Did I tell you Haley was doing the food truck festival? I tell you that. Yeah, Black owned food trucks, because it's about supporting Black owned business, and that whatever noise I hear is actually kind of scary.
Somebody back there.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, full schedule of events for a whole month. Please support something. There is something for everyone. It's something for children to attend. It's something we even make sure we had things that caters to older people who who need like wheelchair.
Yeah.
accessibility, so you getting through, and it's just about like being including everyone because we all benefited from emancipation.
Yes.
And people talk about, well, like, white people, what about white people? It freed them too, in the sense that, because all this stuff is structural, it freed them from having to carry that horrible cultural condition that they, imagine being a white kid in the South and your father or mother passes and now through their will you own a person, right? It freed them of America's original sin as well, So I can see how we all benefited from it, how America at that time, and it wasn't until the emancipation of African people that America showed it was serious about being what its Constitution said it would be.
It would be.
And in that, in a way, we're all emancipated, right? I also strongly encourage everyone to visit a Black church because why not?
Right.
During this journey to Juneteenth, and our choirs is a beautiful experience. And I'm not, before I was going to pick the churches we're going to host, but at this point, just go wherever.
Just go to a church. Yeah.
Like you reckless sinners.
Yeah. John the Baptist. Yeah. John the Baptist was the church she was talking about earlier, which was founded in 1846. It was before the Civil War. So it is the oldest Baptist church in Pensacola right now. Yeah.
And then the one that's down there by the historic village, that one was actually around during Reconstruction, but it was Old Christ Church, but during the Civil War, the Black community used it. Then they broke off, well, not broke off, but after Reconstruction, they started their own church, and that is the Episcopal Church in the Belmont de Villiers.
St. Cyprian.
St. Cyprian.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I went there once. Yeah.
And then, of course, my church, Allen Chapel AME, is the oldest Black AME church.
Yeah. Can't give you about St. Joseph.
Yeah, and St. Joseph's. Actually, St. Joseph's is the oldest Black Catholic church.
Black Creole. Yeah.
Catholic is a church.
Catholic. Yeah.
In the state of Florida.
Yeah.
And, they are an awesome group. Actually, I call that like my second home church.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they do so much. So I'm not going to bore you or belabor, but just go ahead and take your babies to a puppet show about Brer Rabbit, and take your mama to the blues show in Seville Park. And I don't know how many tickets we have left for the thing at the Barclay House with Fiesta, but if you can find a ticket, do that. And just lay it out and invite your friends. And some people said, well, we don't have to plan a family reunion. We just gonna come to Pensacola and eat up y'all food. I said, sure. Yeah. Sure. So it's really about all of us. We're celebrating the story. So thank you for time to talk about that.
No problem. I thank y'all for coming. Anything anybody want to put out? Anything the Dream Defenders got coming up?
We are having a Safe Streets cohort this month. Basically, our Safe Streets is like a whole list of things with affordable housing, affordable health care, all of that. We're really focusing on gun violence, and we have been for almost a year now, actually. So we do have Safe Streets cohorts coming up in this month. You can find us on Pensacola Dream Defenders Facebook page, and most of our information would be on there.
Okay. All right.
It's called what?
Pensacola Dream
Just
Defenders.
on the Dream Defenders page?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I really appreciate y'all for coming out, spreading some good knowledge. I'm not going to put nobody on blast and make them come in here, but I want to shout out to somebody who we had a mutual friend. Now we becoming good friends. Very talented person that just, I ain't going to put him out. I ain't going to make you come up here, but DeQuincy, make sure y'all check out DeQuincy Atterbury.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. So make sure y'all check out his work. Best custom pieces, man. He just had an art show recently last weekend. I believe it was in the Black Wall Street in Atlanta. Yeah, man. So make sure y'all check out his work. We're mutual friends on Facebook. Make sure y'all look him up. Once again, like I always say, man, make sure y'all prayers and be very intentional about your prayers. And make sure y'all love each other more. make sure as a community, do not leave it into other people's hands to educate each other in our communities about who we are. Can't nobody tell our story about how like we can tell our story. And man, I love y'all. Y'all be blessed tonight, and we'll see y'all again next week at the same time here at RWR Live. If y'all haven't already, make sure y'all download the RWR Live app, or RWR Live 365 app, and y'all be blessed.
Good night, everybody, and thank